warn somebody. Jeez. You're naked. All right, you gotta warn somebody when you go live.
What, you just instantaneously become naked over there?
You don't know what I'm wearing under this. For all you know, I'm wearing a
You gonna stand up?
Yeah, I mean,
I gotta do a check on you. Okay. I gotta make sure you're wearing something.
That's why I'm a ghost right now.
Yeah, you're
completely naked.
Yeah.
You morphed into a fireplace.
Hello, champions, and welcome back to What's My Role, episode 22. I'm your tank bean, joined today by GTCo.
Yeah.
Golden.
Howdy.
And the invisible man, Donnix.
8.
Which I will say, I'm very impressed, Donnix, that your chair has not squeaked this entire stream.
I locked it in place.
Oh, damn.
Locked in, bro. All right, though. You were starting to say something. All right.
Whom?
Donnix was.
Okay.
Oh no, I was looking through the deal on the Mythic Affixes for War Within.
So did everybody have a chance to look at that?
I did take a
Briefly.
look at it. I watched some videos talking about affixes as well.
Yeah.
Are we just rolling right into it?
Yeah, we're just going to start talking about it. So you were saying you don't think that really looks like it's that big of a change, right?
Well, I mean, isn't kind of looking through here, the structure for the Mythics hasn't really changed. It's just they added 4 new affixes and got rid of 5. Yeah, 5.
Yeah, there's 5 ones that are being retired, and they're adding 4 new ones.
Which awesome for healers and corporeals going away.
Afflicted, Incorporeal, Entangling, Storming, and Volcanic. All going, they're being retired. So no more volcanoes, no more. I really hated the goddamn tornadoes and storming. That was the worst for me as the tank, because anytime I'm trying to like position things, it just makes it that much more difficult when there's some bullshit happening. Entangling, that was that little circle that would pop around you, and then you'd have to like try and get out of the circle, right? Or you'd get rooted.
Yeah, I think you'd get rooted. I don't know. I don't particularly care about the affixes. I don't like the idea of this whole specific enemies thing. Like, I feel like affixes should stay simple, right? Here's what it does. Okay, everybody knows what it does, right? Not this more intricate stuff where it's like, oh, well, if they have mana, well, then it's this, or it's going to be non-mana enemies, and then like specific damage types, like doing more damage that week. Well, that's just going to incentivize people to like feel like they have to have other characters to get those damage bonuses. Like, I'm not saying that would happen within the first season. And what I guess what I'm trying to say is that Mythic Plus will change based off of how players play it, right? So if the most hardcore people are going to swap characters every time to get particular buffs to beat timers, and then basically the game is set up to where that's the way you need to do it if you want to push keys higher. Like, I feel like that's like ridiculous, like a really bad idea.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
I don't like the idea of, oh, this week they take more arcane damage. Next week they take more holy and shadow. That's ridiculous. Because that's gonna cause groups to have to just swap DPS.
Yeah. Or you're gonna feel inclined to, right? So even if you could pass one during a week without those bonuses, like, well, why would you do that to yourself though, right? Like, why would you not make your life as easy as possible when Mythic Plus is already a challenge?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I kind of agree. I thought that the best thing with affixes is the simple ones, where even though shit like, you know, the tornadoes and the volcanoes are annoying, it's not like something I have to put a lot of thought into besides there's a tornado, don't let it touch me, you know, type of shit. But
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, if you got something to say, go ahead.
I've watched a few people's videos. I don't want to. It's Quasi, right? Quasi. who does the
Yeah.
guides, or is
Yeah.
that how he says
Yeah.
it? He knows way more than I'll ever know in Mythic Plus, to be fair. But I watched this video and I agree with him as far as like he was saying the same thing about like different damage types, but I think he made an argument, or there was an argument saying like, oh, what about new people? And tried to say like it's too complicated to explain enemies with mana and enemies without mana. And I was like, I think that's kind of a weak argument. I don't think it's necessarily more complicated understanding how it works as a new player, but I do think it's just more knowledge that a new player has to just tack on top of everything else they're already trying to learn. So
Yeah.
I think it's more game bloat in a sense. Like,
Yeah, it's a lot more to have to think about as opposed to where like tyrannical and fortified is just like, the bosses are stronger or the trash is stronger.
right.
Where it's like enemies with mana and without mana, and then even like the damage bonus you're getting, I guess, isn't like huge when you're considering it's just on these very specific trash.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I mean, how much is it going to be worth it to be like cycling through like, oh, this week we have to use someone doing this type of damage.
It's 10% more damage, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
but it's only against those very specific enemies.
And attuned is 30% increased damage from bleed.
It depends
and that's
on what
pretty
you mean
big.
by. Oh yeah. See, it depends what you mean by specific enemies, right? So if you're in a dungeon and there's usually more non-caster enemies than there are caster, that's a crap ton of DPS. When you talk about pulling big trash and there's only one caster, and that week the non-mana enemies take an additional 10% damage. Like that's a lot. I think you're right though, as far as like the weeks where it's enemies that have mana, it's going to be less impactful because that's just the way that they've ratioed the dungeons. There's usually way more melee and non-mana using mobs versus the casters. So
Right.
I don't know,
And
man.
then also it's kind of, as I've seen some people saying, it's going to be a lot more helpful for certain types of classes that deal like chaos damage. Is that what the demon hunters deal? Which I guess is kind of like a little bit of all. So it's like kind of a demon hunter buff at the same time.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the damage type. But the thing about that is like, well, just freaking, if someone's damage is low, just buff them. Like buff their damage.
Yeah.
Like creating this whole system, man. Like I think this just overcomplicates what was already simple and I think just annoying to some people. And so now it's this whole other thing. I think it was just a bad direction.
Yeah. I think I had seen I think I watched Tettle's video on it, and he was saying instead of like way that they could make it a little simpler for people is instead of like certain damage types being buffed, just make it like physical damage is buffed versus magic damage, where it's like then all magic classes are going to benefit during that week, or all melee type or physical damage is going to be buffed instead of when we're getting into like shadow damage or you know.
I don't think it should be any. It shouldn't be any, because that means that will screw with your comp. Like people who are rolling, who typically run with like 3 melee and 1 ranged, or what if it's like magic and it's like, well, shit, guys, none of us have a mage this week or have a magic caster. So, or you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. I think it's like complicating a system that does not need to be complicated.
Well, it seems like it's a weird direction that's not like they haven't done something like this before where the affixes kind of give you a plus and a negative. Do you think this might be their kind of weird way of trying to get other classes incorporated into kind of the meta idea of what should be in your group?
I guess that would be the
I'm just
case,
trying to figure out why they would do this.
It totally makes sense what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think it's a weird move that nobody was really asking for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Frost and Fire, I mean, mages are already pretty well embedded into mythics.
Right.
The bleed one, I could see that for warriors. You don't see many warriors
Rogue
because they
as
don't
well.
have, and rogue, because with warrior they just don't have the utility, but that gives you a little bonus to your damage, which might be helpful. Holy Shadow, I mean, paladins, priests, they're all over mythics.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is weird.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that it was their whole idea with that was kind of just to encourage more classes getting the spotlight at times, but when you're pushing mythics, you're like, I don't know. I mean, obviously us as a group, we're trying to push one character because that's what we got the time to do, you know? So we're not trying to
Yeah.
have like, oh, let's get plus 15s on like 5 different characters.
Right.
I do think it's good that they're trying new things. I'm not sure.
Right.
I don't really think that this is kind of the way forward with it, just
Yeah.
because there's so many different like considerations. I saw that they're also changing the like levels that the new ones pop in.
Yeah.
So plus 2 is
yeah.
still your base of like fortified tyrannical, and then plus 4, right? It's plus 5 right now, and they're changing that to plus 4 for the second one.
Yeah.
And then the third one was, I think, plus 10 only, which is now plus 7. So people should be seeing a lot more of the like third affix being added with this.
Okay, so I was wrong on that. I thought that was similar to what it was now, but yeah, you're
What?
right. They pop in at 5 and 10, or
Oh.
5 and 10, not 4 and 7.
Yeah, so you are seeing the affixes a little bit earlier than this season. Mainly the third one is like 3 levels earlier. Oh, here's
Yeah,
what
I
it
don't-
says. These effects should feel like a bonus, offering an advantage for different damage profiles each week without being essential to complete a dungeon. Players will have an opportunity to flex towards different talents, gearing options, and consumables to capitalize on these effects.
Why wouldn't they just simplify it though? If you want to do like a kiss curse type deal, then why not just simplify it and just make it a flat damage increase? Oh, well, this week this is the affix, this, on with non-mana enemies, non-boss enemies, and also mana enemies. But on the flip side, every class or just to our group
Just
in
they
general,
take
our damage
10%
is
increased damage,
right?
regardless
it's
of type.
just God. It's so over the top. It feels like.
Well, yeah, like they almost kind of reckless almost is right, because their mana, or without mana, ignore 20% armor with their attacks, but their armor is reduced by 30%. They could have ended it right there.
Yeah,
but then
without
and then-
even worrying about the extra damage.
Yeah, and then don't add and they take 10% increased arcane damage.
I mean, maybe this isn't that big of a deal, right? Like, I'm just worried about because there will be a meta no matter what, no matter how much
Yeah.
they try to incentivize. And the meta will just be like, oh, well, for this week, you need to make sure you have, every person needs to run a character that does X damage. But I just don't want them to balance Mythic Plus with the timer and everything else based off of people doing that, right? Like the people who are going to have 5 alts and running Mythic to min max, getting these benefits, and then they're going to time keys, right? And if Blizzard goes off the data for the people who do things that way, they're going to complete keys quicker. And I'm just concerned that the game will get tuned to that play style. So starting off, I don't think it's going to be an issue for the first season, but I could see if they tune things to that play style, then people who don't want to play that way might start running into issues.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't really seen too many people be positive about the changes, even, all the
Yeah.
big people that are the loudest, and that's where you think Blizzard's going to be listening the most. So I wouldn't think that they would continue down that direction because, I mean, I know a lot of people like having alts, but Jesus, I don't have
I like
enough
having
time
alts,
in
but
the
I don't
day.
like being like, oh damn, I don't have that alt that's going to make me do way better.
Yeah. Well, it's
Well,
one
yeah,
thing to
sucks.
have meta classes for Mythic, but then when you start breaking it down, now you have meta classes per the week of Mythic, then it starts getting a little
Right.
silly.
Yeah.
And think about how much that's going to slow down your progress unless key master, or what's it called? What is the for
Keystone
doing
Master?
all 15s? Keystone
Yeah.
Master, thanks. So unless they do something where your score is like grouped between all your characters, think of how long that will take you to actually hit those milestones with specific characters if they're not linked.
Yeah, it's something I was actually
Potentially.
just about to bring up. It's something that me and you have actually talked about before. I think after a podcast, even.
Yeah, I was literally
like, shit,
thinking
we
about
should have
that
talked
today.
about this.
I know exactly what you're about to talk about.
Because they were talking about, the whole thing with War Within, and the big thing is the Warband, where it's like everything's account wide. We care about your account, and it's less about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so Golden had brought up this point to me about what if your like Keystone rating was account wide instead of character
for your
specific.
warband. But you could have a character specific one too.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't mean you don't have like this specific character has achieved this level, but it would be also kind of nice if you could have like this entire account over this season has done this and this, therefore they deserve Keystone Master because they did a +5 with this character and they did a +5 with this character, and it's like, why not let people kind of earn it the way they want, especially if they do
100%.
want to play alts like that. That way you're helping that type of person, but you're not hurting the other type of person at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. I really think it'd be great for them to implement a warband IO score and a character specific IO score. That way you can get your achievements no matter what character you're playing on, and nobody has to feel like they have to miss out if they swap to a different character that might help us push like another key, and then everybody gets Keystone Master except for that one person who had to use their freaking alt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like, and it also would make it better for like if one of us does decide to be like the second tank, like maybe there's a week where I'm like so sick that I'm dying, like we just had, where we don't have a tank this week, and then even if we did have a tank, it's like, does someone want to like push this fucking +4 or +5 when they haven't been tanking the whole season, and they're not going to get Keystone Master with this character? So it's like, in that situation, it's like no one's going to feel bad about any kind of composition we have, because we know we're all getting IO. We're all pushing towards that achievement regardless of what characters we're using, right?
Yep. And then for individuals, so people who actually don't have a full group and they have to pug, well, you can look at the individual Raider IO score, right, for that character. Because I know one time during Shadowlands, I had a healer, and he had a 0 rating for Mythic Plus, and we were gonna do. You were there, and I messaged him. I said, dude, you've never done this dungeon. He was like, I have, just on my other character. This is my healer, and he ended up totally. Absolutely sucking, but that's the point. is we could see his right, so you wouldn't be fooled by the overall score. You would still have a character specific one, so you wouldn't be misled to think someone who's never healed a dungeon before has like a high Raider IO, but it's from their DPS. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean they already have this whole system in place for tracking specific characters. They would just have to add something on top of that, basically.
Yep.
It's kind of like you're wearing a shirt and maybe it's a little bit chilly, so you just put on a coat. You've got this extra layer of, account wide IO score. Right. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea, though. What do you guys think about that?
Ain't definitely hurt.
No, I agree, because I mean, depending on what role they play or whatever, I mean, it'd be nice to know at least like if someone's using an alt or something and they're coming into your pug group. Hey, what's your how familiar are you with this dungeon, without having to be like a jerk and be like, dude, have you ever done this? Do you know what the hell you're doing? Like something that indicates, oh yeah, maybe they didn't do it on this character, but they have done it. They know the mechanics. They know, something there that and that would help out that person with that alt that's trying to pug through Mythics. Be like, hey, yeah, I know this dungeon, but this is the first time I've done it on this character.
Yeah, it's just kind of beneficial for both sides of that equation.
Oh
really.
yeah.
Oh, I guess overall we'll have to wait and see how the affixes feel. God, it's so close to release. I think it's too late for them to roll back on it. So I think that's what we're getting. And we probably
Yeah.
won't
Yeah.
see any changes till a season or two, if they decide to even make changes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this stuff scales as you move up through the
Yeah.
mythics. So it may be a thing where, you know, that extra damage doesn't really matter. Or it could be a thing where, you know, the bad part of the affix is getting tuned high enough to where that good part of the affix needs to be done.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird move.
I mean, you got to think that they can always tweak these things because they're always kind of doing their little nerfs and buffs and dungeon changes here and there. So, I mean, we just got to kind of see how it goes, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to talk about with that, before we talk about a few other things, was in that video I'd watched with Tettles where he had talked about, you know, physical and magical instead of just, you know, more specific things. I think it was that video at least. He had talked about something that I thought sounded kind of cool, where instead of like this kind of weekly rotating, here's your 3 affixes this week, if when you every time you get a key, it has an affix attached to it. So every week you're playing, it's like, what are we gonna get this week? You know, just that extra little kind
I think
of
that would be
wrench
cool.
thrown into there.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That would
thought
have
that
taken a
sounded
lot
cool,
less
too.
time to implement too than what they.
Right. Yeah,
Instead
you
of
can tell they
creating a
spent a long
rotation.
time.
Yeah.
But I
guess we
kind of
won't
like
really know
that
till we're in
idea
it.
better.
I do too.
What were you gonna say?
I think that's
Yeah.
great. I said, I guess we won't really know until we're in it, right? And we start getting into the first season of the War Within and kind of seeing how it feels. And because I don't want to just jump on the bandwagon, right? Like not promoting self-thought, like everybody just like,
Yeah.
oh, everybody in the community's mad, so I'm mad. But like,
Yeah, like,
I think
nah.
legitimately, there's a reason for it, because anybody who's doing Mythic Plus understands like this is just another layer of complexity that's not really gonna. I don't think it's gonna make the game more fun, right? So why?
Give me Keystone Master.
Well,
That's all I want.
there's a lot that's going to go into it too. I mean, none of us have jumped in the beta or done any kind of beta testing on it. We don't know how classes are tuned right now. So until we get to the point where we're starting to do mythics, we're not going to know exactly how this is going to feel, because we don't know how our own classes are going to feel.
Yeah.
It just sounds like ass.
It does. It sounds like
Sounds like
ass,
some
but it might not
bullshit.
even be a big deal. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, speaking of the beta, there was something else. Since our last podcast and our last stream, which, goddamn, I guess it's been like 2 weeks now, just because
Eons.
I've been like deathly sick.
Almost dead.
Yeah. So they did announce, you know, the beta's live now. They announced early access and the official launch day of War Within. So we know now that August 22nd is the early access for people that spend extra money, which I know that's kind of its own controversial topic where a lot of people are pissed off. I mean, it does suck, really, right? You got to spend extra money to play early.
I don't.
And yeah, fuck it. You heard it here, folks.
I don't even know what
It says
money
fuck
is.
them
We
poor
said
people.
fuck
And then launch is August 26th. So that's the official, everybody gets to play, even the poor people.
That's right.
And
That's
then
when I'm gonna
season
play.
1 starts September 10th. So
Yeah.
that's when we'll be starting our new season adventure, which did make me wonder, like, when do we think season 4 is going to end? Because we don't have a ton of time. I know we are close, but
Do we have a pre-patch already, or have we gotten the latest?
we don't have the specific date for the pre-patch. Some people are thinking, late July, early August, though. And that's probably going to be the end of season 4, I would guess.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
are
probably. There's going to be some type of. I think that would make sense for there to be some type of end before it actually starts to roll in. I don't think they're going to go season 4 and then War Within.
Yeah.
There's going to be some downtime, I think.
So
It'd
we
be
might
kinda
only
cool.
have like 4 to 6 weeks to get this shit done.
Yep.
And I think we can do it. Yeah.
That's right.
I know our buddy Goat wanted to step up to the podium and preach to us for a minute here.
So my preach
Brother
is,
Goat, let's hear it.
I'm tired of fucking dying so quick. Like, that shit is getting annoying as hell.
Yeah.
Because last season we started in, and given I was still, brain spanking new at that one, but it did not feel nowhere as difficult as this shit. So I don't know if this is the tuning that they did that's kind of messing with things or what, but it's getting to be a pain in the ass to even play the game.
Yeah.
They're making it more of like a competition than it is enjoyment for the player now.
Well, I think it depends, right? It's not enjoyable for you right now because it's killing you, right?
Instantly.
I think the change to go from taking Mythic and like and building it all the way up to a 10, that was nice for people who have been playing for a while. But that got rid of all those increasing layers of complexity for someone who's new to the game, right? So I think Mythic 0 used to be more beginner friendly. And I think now, it's not. it's not very beginner friendly.
Yeah.
And see, that's my thing. Like, they could just add it to the levels and everybody would have been happy with it. Just left it alone, just let them build the levels up.
I'm torn because I like the idea that I don't have to do 6 different iterations of a dungeon to get what we want to achieve, right? Which is Keystone Mastery. But at the same time, it hurts our team because there's not a lot of wiggle room for like working on progression in Mythic, because now it's either you get it right or you're just dead, right?
Yeah.
I think there's less room for learning and
I agree.
scaling. There's not as much scalability now because that whole gap between 1 and 10 is now just like one into the other.
Yeah, because like once you get from 0 to 1, like that's a whole new ball game.
Well, that's 0 is a 10, isn't it? Right?
It's basically a 10, but it's a 10 without 10. Fortified or tyrannical.
Right. Yeah. So that's a huge gap. So like I'm glad I guess they made heroic harder. It doesn't feel that way now that we're in Mythic, but I feel like for a new player, there's a really large gap to try and overcome to go from heroic to jumping straight to a Mythic 10. Like that's a huge learning curve. So I think it has downsides too. I think overall it is good for the game because once it's going to take time. Like I think Bean and I talked about this and Donnix as well about like, well, I don't want Goat to get burnt out, right? Like I don't want you to get burnt out and I want you to enjoy the game. And it definitely does feel like this season has been a lot harder because of the change. And I don't know, man. I don't want you to hate the game, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I understand that it's probably frustrating. And maybe a different class, maybe one that has higher mobility so you feel like you're in more control and you can kind of, because the thing in WoW is that if you have a class that doesn't have high mobility, you kind of got to be ready to position yourself. And it sucks.
It sucks.
So maybe going into a class with higher mobility to start with will help you. You know what I mean? Avoid some of those things. I can tell you right now, as a monk healer, if I was on a monk, I'd be dying to so much stuff because I can just roll out of the way. In 2 seconds, I can just roll.
Well, I think it's a mix of the change to the Mythic structure, and this set of dungeons is very mechanic heavy with no room for error. I mean, if you stand in the crap in these dungeons, you're done, basically. Like, whereas last season, it seemed like you can kind of get away with it every once in a while.
Yeah.
This season, it's like, nah, you're in it, you're dead.
You are officially dead.
The other night, when we were running and Aspen got killed by stuff, there was literally nothing I could do. Like the way the game is designed, I cannot save you. Like if you get hit by stuff that is supposed to be avoided, holy crap. Unless I know what's about to happen and I throw a shield on you, like you're just done. Like there's nothing I can do. Like it's so it's sorry, it's
very
so
punishing.
built around. It's incredibly punishing if like, oh, didn't pop your defensive, you're dead. Like,
Fuck
like,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so it creates the scenarios where I'm just like, okay, we haven't had anything come up, and then it'll be something that you have to dodge it or you're just dead, right? And it's like, well, I can't do anything. Like, I literally can't do anything when that stuff happens, and it sucks as a healer. And I've kind of had to slow my roll on like dropping cooldowns to like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I waste all that to save one person, then my whole party's gonna die once the damage spike happens, right? So it's kind of like I don't really have a choice. Like, it's just kind of crazy, man.
No, it's rough.
Yeah.
I was thinking he might maybe have a better time if he rolled like a hunter where he doesn't have to be in melee range all the time.
That's true.
And then I know the hunters can cast a lot of their stuff while moving as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that offers him a lot more mobility, and he can kind of just in general position himself where he wants to be before, you know, the bullshit happens, instead of like,
I didn't even realize how much more damage you take in melee because I had been playing that shaman since season 3. So like my damage that I took was like pretty low, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing a really good job dodging the damage. It's not just dodging it; it's because I'm not in melee. And then now I'm playing my monk, and I'm like I'm taking double the amount of damage just because I'm in melee range. It's crazy. So yeah, totally swapping to range is good. Just you got to be careful too. That's another thing I think we have with some of our range players too, is you got to be careful. But you can't be in Narnia like while the rest of the group is over
just
here.
because you're a hunter doesn't mean you can be all the way in the fucking next room.
Because what happens is then you are out of range for any AoE healing or any direct triage healing. So if you start, because they're still gonna get you. They know people hang out in the back. Like, so what ends up happening is
What's
people
that fucker doing back there?
So they're taking damage, but they're not receiving any of my AoE healing, and I can't triage heal. So that's the only catch with range, is just be careful about your distance and make sure you're kind of hanging around in an area where you're still catching that healing.
Yeah, because the one thing I noticed switching to Paladin is I basically have my damage rotation and then I have my defensive rotation.
Right.
So like in the middle of doing my damage rotation, I'm like, oh, okay, pop this defensive just to not take so much damage while you're in that melee range. Because sometimes you're going to take damage no matter what. You just are if you're in melee range. Stuff's going to happen. You're going to get in a weird position. You're going to take damage. So I usually have like my one big defensive that I use during mechanics for boss fights, but my other two defensives, I basically just do a rotation with them.
Yeah.
And that's really the only reason why I can stay alive for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as a Death
go
Knight,
ahead.
you're like healing by, you know, taking damage and then popping an ability to like reverse that. So it's kind of like you have to take damage to get heals.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with range though too, and I noticed at the shaman that you have to be careful of, is positioning in general too, because boss mechanics are almost like designed to like separate you from the group if you're too far away, right? Like how many times have we been in a boss fight and something is on the floor and it's massive, and so now you're separated from the whole rest of the group. And when I was playing my shaman, that would happen to me sometimes. I'm like, oh crap, like this debuff on the ground has now separated me from everyone in melee range, and now I can't heal them because I was, you know what I mean? So it's like you still have challenges, but they're just different, and I think it's easier to learn.
Yeah, and I think the hunter rotation is also a lot less, you know,
It's simpler to understand. Like,
than the Death Knight one where you're constantly like looking
it's
at.
not as
procs you're
RNG
getting.
based. Yeah.
It's like with the Death Knight,
sure.
most of the time I'm popping my what's that called?
Obliterate?
The shield. Turtle shell.
Anti-magic shield.
Anti-magic shell?
That sounds like about right, yeah.
Turtle shell, anti-magic
So anyways,
shell.
half the time I'm like, okay, I'm about to take a lot of damage. I pop it, and then it ain't 2 seconds later, Golden's like, pop it now. I'm like, sorry, bud, like I already did. Because we've done enough of these dungeons now where I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I need to go ahead and pop it now.
Yeah.
As long as we ain't playing that stupid frog map, okay? About having
Yeah,
that
well,
one,
I
too.
mean,
We gonna be
that one's
playing
not
that
even
one
your
on that.
fault because that one,
No.
those stupid frogs fixate. So
No, I don't talk
I mean,
the little frozen.
It's
chick,
a mix of
okay?
things. It's
That's
a
the one that
mix
makes me
of-
mad.
Yeah. It's a mix of
'Cause-
things. It's
Little Tubby
Go ahead.
can't run so fast, okay? So like
Need my
she just
chocolate
annihilates
cake.
my ass.
it's everyone needs to know if their class has an ability to dispel themselves because they
Yeah.
need to dispel themselves. If their class doesn't have a dispel, because otherwise that's more because I have an 8-second cooldown, right? I have revival, but I can only use that once and it dispels everybody at once, and then it's on a 3-minute cooldown. So I have to wait 8 seconds between dispelling everybody plus try and heal people, right? And not die myself to these frogs. So that's part of it too. It's me staying on top of dispels and healing and us working as a group to kind of get those frogs in that gulp zone, whatever you call it.
yeah, and I'm using my cleanse. It's like cleanse toxins, I think is what it's called, pretty generously during that fight as well. But there's still like some people get like crazy stacks and like I gotta make a choice. Okay, I'll get this person first, and then oh shit, they died from poison.
Yeah.
So I can usually survive the frog. No,
Okay.
I guess it's just a lot more learning we need to run through.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe we'll have you roll up.
But I don't
hunter
feel like we're doing terrible. I'll put it that way.
Well, we're not doing
It's just-
terrible. No.
It's frustrating time and time again of oh look, there he
Oh
goes
yeah.
again.
Well, I mean, as soon as you die, that really sucks for our damage output, and it's like, fuck, what are we gonna do? So yeah, I understand the frustration.
I don't want to have to walk 10 miles because they don't put respawns closer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the walkbacks and halls of
Those
infusion.
walks suck.
Some of those respawn checkpoints are absolutely horrible.
They're
Agreed.
horrendous.
They're horrible.
They're to punish you even further, even though you already died.
There's such a difference in not just dungeon mechanics. Well, just dungeon mechanics, and just from like the ones that they took for season 3 versus season 4. Like, I don't think it's just the fact that we're basically when we do a +2, we're doing a +11, right, or 12, whatever it is. Like the mechanics feel different. Like the fights feel like, good lord, man.
Well, I will say that I have seen kind of like the general consensus on Dragonflight's dungeons is they're not very well liked. And I don't know if that's because of, the stuff like the walkbacks and the really heavy mechanics and whatnot, but
Go ahead and preach
maybe
it.
we're not the only ones struggling here.
I don't think I've had enough time in Dragonflight dungeons to say I dislike them. I dislike those certain aspects, like what Donnix was saying, and like I hate the walkbacks.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks that the mechanics. I don't want the mechanics to be easier because then I feel like I'm not like achieving something. So I'm glad that the mechanics are kind of difficult. It's way too punishing for the checkpoints.
Yeah, I mean, the walkbacks are really bad, some of them. If you die, you're already losing a couple seconds anyways per death, so it's like, why also have to have, like, okay, it's going to take us like 3 fucking minutes to all get back to where we were now. Before we end, I kind of wanted to take a look at our Raider IO, like what we've kind of got so far.
Ain't got
So it is June 13th, so I don't know how many weeks we are into Season 4, but we have timed a Neltharis +2. We've timed Algathar's Academy +4. That's our best one so far. Uldaman Legacy of Tyr +3 and Ruby Life Pools +2. And we've got all 4 of those timed on Fortified Week. The only other dungeon that we got points for was in Tyrannical Week. We did not time a Neltharis 2. We missed it by it was pretty close. We were over by 30 seconds. So that was some bullshit. But that's kind of where we're at with our Raider IO right now. So I'm sitting at 654. And really that +4 Algathar's Academy gives me a lot of faith that we can, if we can do +4 Algathar's Academy, I'm sure we can get the rest to, +5. We just really, because I don't know if we're going to have 4, 6, 7 weeks we really just gotta make some time to get some pushes with everybody, really. So
100%.
and then I think we can do it. Everybody agree?
I
No,
think so, man.
lost
I could do
cause.
it.
No.
No, I mean that one night that we kind of just pushed and pushed and pushed, and I don't think we failed any of our runs. I mean, that showed that we can do it.
Yeah. I want to say we got all 4 of these that we made,
In one
the
night.
4, 2, 2, and 3, all in 1 week.
I thought it was
We did
I thought it was
two of
all
those
in one night. Yeah.
Was it
No,
all in
no, I don't
one
think we
single
did them all in
night?
one night.
I thought we had it spread.
We did have it 2 nights. 2 nights.
Because I think
Yeah,
we did 2,
'cause we-
3, 4 in one night.
That might be it.
But man, when we did Algathar's Academy too, like we took like 5 seconds to like make sure we knew that first boss fight because that's the worst one.
So yeah, we
Once
still had
realized
time.
that we had that down, like no issues. We crushed it, right?
Yeah, we were under time by a minute 20.
Yeah.
So
Which
not
is fine
bad.
for a +4 when right now the goal is to just get 1 key higher. 1 key higher.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, it just shows that we can do it. It's just all about knowledge and
Not dying.
yeah. What's it called when you do something?
Succeed.
look what I can do. Yeah.
Effort.
I mean, we're kind of like we're gaining experience, right? Like we're
Yeah.
Yeah, knowledge and application of
There
the
you go.
knowledge. We'll call it that. So yeah, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna stream tomorrow night and Saturday night, maybe even Sunday night, just because it's been a hell of a week.
yeah, absolutely.
So I'm ready to push these fucking keys if you guys
I'll be,
can make time for it.
I'll be good for tomorrow. But we can get into that after we.
Yeah.
I gotta hop off here.
Hell yeah. But that's the podcast, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, join the Mythic Mafia. Find us on YouTube, Twitch for our live streams every Friday and Saturday evening. We also have TikTok, IG, and Facebook if that's your thing. Play Murden Realm on the Alliance side and Illidan Realm on the Horde side. Join our community Discord to chat WoW. Whether you're a noob like us or a seasoned vet, we're accepting of all levels and factions. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you next week.
Yeah.
Laters.
See it.